What is the general perspective in a deeply fractious Washington, D.C. about the historic nature of Senator Harris's nomination now?
As far as the Indian community goes, there's a lot of excitement. Even though, for a long time, she didn't really acknowledge as much her Indian roots. But since she launched the presidential campaign for herself, she began to do that. And I think there's palpable excitement. But Indian Americans who are Republicans have a lot of questions.
And what is your personal view of the nomination?
Well, I'm an impartial observer, or at least I try to be. I think she brings a lot to the ticket. She is tomorrow's face of America. She is biracial, she is younger, and the Democratic Party obviously is thinking ahead, trying to get leadership in position that would be ready to take on the mantle from the older generation, from an almost all-white party structure.
Right. You referred to her initial reluctance to acknowledge her Indian side of her roots. I've seen that appears to be a trend among politicians of Indian origin. I mean, you have examples in Nikki Haley or Bobby Jindal. Is it just expediency, or they are genuinely not attracted to that?
I don't think, they are running for office in the United States. And it's taken as long as it has for the political process to acknowledge the various ethnic groups. So Kamala Harris is half Black, and African Americans are 13% of the population. They are greater numbers. It's a numbers game at the end of it. So I don't think it's that big a deal that she's grown up as an African American pretty much. She went to an all-Black college. She went to Howard University. She's a member of one of the oldest Black sororities. So yes, it's mainly political, but you're a politician at the end of the day.
Right. After some initial enthusiasm, there was a distinct darkening of the mood among the Bharatiya Janata Party supporters in America because of Harris's views on Kashmir. And I see a lot of back and forth on Facebook. A lot of it is quite insane, really, and quite ignorant. But the fact is that it seems they are turned off a bit. Do you think that could have any impact, to the extent that Indian American community really doesn't sway any elections anywhere? But do you think that might have some impact on the way they vote?
It might, because I'm hearing a lot from the older generation, Indian Americans especially. They feel that the Democratic Party is becoming kind of captive of interest groups, mainly Muslim American interest groups that are financed in a certain way, and they have a certain agenda that is not necessarily friendly to India, especially Modi's India. It's also a fact that the Democratic Party, for the Democratic Party, human rights are a core issue. And what's been happening in Kashmir and otherwise to the Muslim minority in India is a cause of concern. So surely this will be one of the talking points were a Biden administration come to power. I think India is well prepared for that. They know that. But at the same time, US and India are strategic partners. Given what's happening with China, the importance of India increases. It doesn't decrease.
Right.
So once in power, they'll make their judgment.
You've been a seasoned foreign policy observer for a long time. I'm particularly interested in Joe Biden's foreign policy as compared to, say, Obama's, or of course Trump's. It's going to be diametrically opposite. But in the context of South Asia, where Biden too has caused some angst among Indian Americans because of the same views that we talked about, human rights in Kashmir, etc. Do you think it's going to be a sticking point if he's elected? You did refer to it that India is prepared for it, but from this side, how do you see it playing out?
It could be a sticking point. I think there could be an attempt by a Biden administration to find a rapprochement with Pakistan. Because if you noticed in his address to the Indian American community, and even in the agenda for the Indian American community on the website of Biden, they don't mention Pakistan. They mention cross-border terrorism, which is a code word for Pakistan, but they don't actually name Pakistan. They do name China, which is interesting, and it's half the battle. But they will not name Pakistan because they have, they're under pressure from Pakistani Americans, I would assume, to keep the door open and to explore possibilities with Pakistan.
Right. You again, in your, I think, first response, you did allude to the fact that Kamala Harris is perhaps being groomed as the future of the Democratic Party. How do you see that impacting the way she positions herself as a possible vice president if they are elected?
I think it could have a moderating influence because, especially if you look at it from India's point of view. You don't want to alienate a country of 1.3 billion people, a country that is going to be your partner if China is your rival, if you agree that China is your rival. And I think Democrats do agree that the situation with China is untenable. So what their China policy is something that we should watch out for sure. So I would think that if anything, it would be a moderating influence if she is positioning herself. Because we have to remember that the United States is no longer the absolute superpower. China is clipping at its heels, you know.
Right.
So,
and finally, this is a somewhat unrelated but a broad question, which I'm personally intrigued by all the time. To the extent that people are hung up on skin color and ethnicity or race, why is it that predominantly when people talk about it, even in the case of, say, Barack Obama or Senator Harris, nobody cares to mention, generally nobody cares to mention the mixed heritage. If you are so obsessed about the way the person is, you should be accurate enough to say that, they are always described as black, for instance, which is, to me, it's strange in the sense that if your focus is about race, it is mixed race. Why is it that this narrative has taken hold?
See, I would say there's been progress since Barack Obama, ran for president. His biracial ancestry was not as much acknowledged as Kamala Harris's is being acknowledged. I think in all the stories that the mainstream media wrote, they made a point of mentioning that she's of Asian American descent, mother is Indian or Indian American descent. They use those terms. But what I was struck by was the day after she accepted her nomination at the convention, the front page story in the Washington Post called her the first Black American in the story, in the first lead paragraph. That was interesting because till then they were always mentioning the mixed background.
I find it strange because if it's a very patriarchal response. If you're talking about the origin of any child, I mean, you look at the mother, right? It's the mother where the child comes from. So if you're so hung up on something as ridiculously trivial as skin color or ethnicity or race, the least you could do is acknowledge mother's side of heritage. I find it very strange. You're right.
Right, and we shall see how much she exploits the Indian side of her ancestry. I think she's going to do it more and more. The Indian American communities, if for nothing else, for fundraising, right?
Yeah, I mean, already the reference to her aunt in Tamil, Chitti, has already been excited Twitter so much. So I think you're absolutely right. It's all about expediency at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And my Republican friends were very annoyed by the excitement that she used the Tamil word for aunt, because they said, look, just because she used that word, are we supposed to, just embrace her as Indian American? What has she done for the community? They were particularly asking that she represents one of the largest ones in California. What has she specifically done for the community?
Right, right. No, this is terrific, Seema. I know you have to carry on. I really want to thank you for your time, and I'll send you a clip as soon as we broadcast it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Nice talking to you.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Bye.